When describing reality, one is always making approximations. Full precision is impossible with the human brain as we know it. Am I certain of this? No. But I, whatever constitutes I, believes this to be the case, and I can manipulate my body to give signals of this idea that full precision is impossible, which is what I'm doing right now. When processing and describing reality, we are dealing with some abstraction of it. I don't mean to insult your intelligence, I'm just stating the idea that I'm working with here. And so to achieve greater levels of clarity, you have to go down to deeper levels. First, you talk about a human. Then you talk about a human as a collection of organs interacting with each other. Then as a collection of cells, which is just a collection of molecules, which is just a collection of atoms, which is just a collection of quarks, Planck units, on down the line, etc. But the human brain is limited in its ability to process information. So when you go down a level, you do achieve a much greater level of clarity, but it's much more difficult to work with, and it's a lot slower. In fact, just going from single human to a collection of organs is a transition to a system that is so complex that it cannot be calculated with in real time. You know, you have all the different glands releasing all the different hormones and all the negative feedback systems that create all that thing. It cannot be calculated in real time. And once you get down to the cellular level, forget it. A person would spend years just to calculate the movement of a body over the course of 1 second when working at that level. What we can do, however, is to analyze the behavior of a few cells and then use that information to create a model of cellular interaction. This model is not a recreation. It is not to be confused with a direct calculation of a body functioning on the cellular level. It is a way of simplifying a lower level. It is diving into the lower levels of reality and using the information while we're down there to create an abstract model for use at the higher, more abstract levels that humans work in. This model is necessarily incorrect. It is a caricature of a deeper level of reality, a level of reality that we are incapable of processing in full. Praxeology is the science of human action in relation to each other. It doesn't go to the organ level of humans. It deals with individual humans as the indivisible unit of analysis. Through analysis at the human level, praxeology, we can discover why the state comes about, how groups of people come together and form what we call social structures, and how the interaction of individual humans can, and whenever it has the opportunity to do so, does provide for law and security, and the welfares and all that good stuff. That is, understanding the basic model of a stateless society through praxeology. One cannot directly calculate human action for the same reason one cannot directly calculate the functioning of the human body at the cellular level. And for this reason, one cannot come up with a certain model of how humanity should act. All one can do is come up with a simplified model of how humans will react based on their experience with and understanding of human action. A lot of people understand this partially and think that the incredible complexity of human action is why we need a state, when in reality, a state is an attempt at calculating human action and through threats of violence getting people to act in a way deemed superior by the agents of the state. But of course the state is just people, and so any possible calculation problem is not an argument against a stateless society, but an argument against the state itself. And so anarchism can be seen as the logical conclusion of praxeology, and a great way to tell if someone has anything of value to add to a political theory or political conversation is to determine if they are thinking in terms of human action. When they describe some event, some news event, are they talking in terms of people responding to incentives, human action, or are they talking about nebulous social forces? And so I see the key to advancing anarchist thought being to advance praxeology, to be advancing a method or a view of dealing in human action. Now, praxeology is all that is required to be able to understand how a stateless society would work. The state cannot rule by force alone, and when someone asks how a state is maintained primarily, the only answer you have to give is ideology. Ideology is how the herd is maintained, with a few stragglers being dealt with by force. I think this is the new mentality, and I feel a little bit arrogant saying this, but I think dealing in the world of human action will become the new way to understand the world. It'll be the next big thing. It'll be the next psycho-class revolution. Now, not to calculate the behavior of every person on the planet, but to analyze what one thinks are the problems praxeologically, and then realizing that they are not problems at all, such as roads, police, regulation, and defense, and to realize that the solution to the problem, the state, is no solution at all, and that we were able to get by in the past in spite of the existence of states, not because of them. Stefan Molyneux is going one level deeper. What causes the ideology that maintains the state? And the answer he gives is parental authority, which is projected onto the state. And that is the unique value that Molyneux brings to anarchism. Recognizing the projection of parental authority can be rather wrenching and an emotional process, which I think causes a lot of people to be attached to Steph and not be critical of him on other issues. While I believe a stateless society can only be achieved primarily through agorism, without a breakdown of the statist ideology, we are in danger of relapsing into a new state. Right? Schelling points. History doesn't end with de facto anarchy. When debating statists from a praxeological point of view, one must deal with the fact that they are working at a higher level, and thus we are at a disadvantage in that the statists can just rattle off a bunch of fluffy nonsense, while the anarchists will be working like a dog in the weeds, explaining private regulation and why Scandinavia isn't really a paradise and the principles behind that reality. In order to prevent this unfortunate situation, the anarchists must just get really good at praxeological arguments to the point where he can make them very fast, and so debating statists is no longer difficult, but that requires some significant heavy lifting up front.